Grr.
For the third straight week, we are here at the Daytona International Speedway, but with one major difference. This is the first round of the playoffs for the Circle B Diecast Superspeedway Series. It is round 14 of the season. Just 7 races left to go after tonight's race, and not a cup race to be found in the next 9. Good evening, everybody. My name is Frank Marchese. Thank you very much for making us a part of your evening. Alongside me, as normal with this series, is my broadcast partner, Nate Siefker. And Nate, another great race in store. We saw an amazing race the last time these guys were here in the trucks. We're going to do it again here tonight to start the playoffs.
Yeah, these guys have been. This combo has been around a couple of times this season here at the trucks at Daytona, under the lights as well. So these guys have plenty of experience with the package here. Alongside it being the first round of the playoffs, it should make for some exciting racing and plenty of storylines as the race goes on tonight.
And we'll take a look at the point standings right now as they sit. The drivers who are in the top 16 are in the playoffs, are in the chase for the championship. Those are the guys with 2,000 points or more. You got an extra 20 bonus points over the course of the season for winning a race. So with that being the case, Greg McConey shoots right up to the top by 20 points over Connor Trafari and Chris Worrell. Zach Bowerman, Joe Gautier also getting wins to move them up into a little bit of a better spot going into these playoffs. Now, you might be thinking, well, Elijah Innes won races this year. Michael Anthony won races this year. Scott Warren won races this year as well. Why are they not in the playoffs? They did not meet the minimum race requirement in order to be eligible for the playoffs, which is why you're seeing some guys like Dan Brazington and Ernie Ludwig in the playoffs and not guys that had won races earlier this year.
And that could be a massive turning point, too, for some of those guys that didn't win those races. That's a huge saving grace for those guys. It gives them still a chance. We've seen, Ernie and Dan run at the front, but they haven't been able to complete a race from start to finish this season yet. So it'll be interesting to see, the playoffs are here. The pressure's on all those guys at the front to not make mistakes. It's interesting to see if they can just lock themselves in and advance to the next round.
And Dan Brazington had almost won the race last week, got spun coming off of turn 2, which handed the second win of the season, over to Connor Trafari, as you see the team standings on your screen right now. We're going to bring up the ticker here. For those of you who are wondering, the drivers that are highlighted in gold are the championship contenders as we're about to go into the qualifying session. So the drivers that are highlighted in gold on the timing pylon they are the playoff contending drivers, the playoff eligible drivers. Everybody else is just here to race as we begin this qualifying session, the first qualifying session of the playoffs. And for the drivers who are going to be up there in gold, this is a crucial qualifying.
It's a crucial qualifying for a lot of reasons. Number one, the further up you are, the less likely you are to get in trouble tonight. And that will become important. It'll be interesting to see some of the guys that you mentioned that have plenty of those bonus points, how many of those bonus points they can hang on to. It is a cushion, but how big of a cushion really is it for some of those guys?
I believe we have 24 here tonight, so this is a very good size field here that we are going to be fielding for this race. Again, 16 of them are running for the championship. There are some playoff drivers that are not here, as we watch Connor Trafari about to begin his qualifying time. Jason Papp, Connor Trafari, Ryan Decker, and Zishan Dura on track right now. Dustin Longson, Elijah Innes, Joe Gautier, a bunch of drivers on track right now here early to get that one qualifying lap in.
And you notice all season long we talked about there being roughly a half and half split with qualifiers. Half would set a time, half would not. It will be interesting to see if this dynamic has changed in the playoffs. I'd imagine more people want to be up front more often, so I think we'll have actually more qualifiers than what we're used to seeing here.
Connor Trafari will be the first one to put a time in here in that number 48. If not, he'll be incredibly close with Jason Papp. Actually, he's a little bit ahead of Jason Papp. So we'll see what Trifari does. Again, goes right down to that apron, and Trifari will put it up to the top at a 52.234. Let's now look and see what we have here. There's Dustin Logston in the number 2. He'll go up to 6th quickest. Joe Gautier there as well. GT Park coming out of turn 4 in that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 76, about to take the line. Chris Worrell not that far behind him. Park goes 8th quickest. Worrell coming up behind him is going to go 2nd quickest in that number 6.
So that's a really strong showing so far by Trifari, being 600ths of a second clear. And you hear 600ths of a second, you're like, well, that's not a whole lot. But considering the fact of the matter is these guys are flat out all the way around, the only differential in your time is how you get onto the racetrack on your warm-up lap and basically the line you take on your lap. So that's really actually very impressive to see that big of a gap between Trifari and Worrell.
Here comes Aaron Tribble coming out of turns 3 and 4. Right now, only a couple of cars on the racing surface right now. Greg McConey, the other one who is on a lap right now, as Tribble goes up to 7th with a 52.341. Here's Greg McConey in a little bit of a throwback scheme for him in that number 12. Midwest Motor Customs all over that number 12 Ford F-150.
I wonder which company he's repping tonight. Can't quite tell.
It beats me. I'm thinking it's iRacing iFlag. That might be it.
Maybe.
As McConey crosses the line, he will go up to 4th quickest. McConey coming in with the biggest advantage out of everyone because McConey currently has that championship lead by virtue of his 3 wins. Brandon Wilson, one of his teammates, comes across the line right now. Nick Kessler, the only other one on track that will get a time in. Wilson will go 12th quickest, second slowest of the drivers who have taken time. And now here comes Nick Kessler to put his time in. Fastest of all, the second half of the lap, it goes second quickest at a 2, I believe it was a 2:58 is what Kessler runs. So your front row and your grid now is essentially set for the first playoff race of the season.
And no real surprises. You got plenty of front runners that we normally see at the front. So not surprised at all by the results here at qualifying, but it'll be interesting to see those guys that we talk about so often, after a top of the playoffs table as well, what strategy they have tonight. Because, it's a playoff race. A lot of stuff can happen, especially with the series running on super speedways as well.
Yeah, just going to make a quick change here. Sorry, we'll keep this from being a radio broadcast for too much longer. There it is. As we get set to go here for tonight's race, we will go now to the grid for the first race of the playoffs. It'll be Connor Trifari leading Nick Kessler in row number 1. Chris Worrell and Zishan Dura will make up row number 2. Row 3 goes to Greg McConey and Jason Papp. Ryan Decker and Elijah Innes will make up row number 4. Row 5 goes to Aaron Tribble and Shane Posey, with row 6 going to Joe Gautier and Dustin Logston.
Brandon Wilson, he'll roll off in the 13th position with GT Park. He'll roll off as the last of the qualifiers in the 14th position. Marcus Adams and Michael Anthony, they'll roll off 15th and 16th tonight, with Zach Borman and Dan Brazenstein lining up side by side in row 9 in the 17th and 18th position. Mark McFadden will roll off 19th with Ernie Ludwig in the 20th spot. Ryan Worley, he'll roll off 21st tonight with Shane Newens alongside of him in the 22nd position. And it seems like we always say this in every broadcast, John Lombard will make up the final place on the grid tonight in the 23rd position.
It's another thing that I just realized that I could do. But we'll sort that out for next time as we get set to roll off of pit road here. I believe we're waiting on Nick Kessler and Marcus Adams. I believe Shane Newens is also one of the drivers that's lagging us behind a little bit. as we wait to grid up here for tonight's race. This is going to be a real test. You're going to want to get out in front early, but you also want to save that car, because now, you win your race during the regular season, you're in the playoffs no matter what happens. Now you're racing for a championship again. You have to get back into that mentality of, I have to be calm, I have to be patient, but it's the playoffs and you're going to want to race.
There will be a lot of give and take in these first 70 laps of this race, if I had to guess, especially with a lot of these playoff guys, because they want to survive to the end. You don't get points, as many points finishing in the 20th position as you do in first, especially if you have that buffer, as Kessler is
He's having some fun.
moving. Yes, he's having some fun, obviously. But yeah, you have a buffer, but we'll talk about it through the night. You want to pad it up as much as possible. You don't want to use it as an insurance policy. And some of these guys like Dan Brazenton are towards the bottom of this playoff table. They're going to be a little bit more aggressive. They're going to want to try to win a race and try to make sure they're not in that knockout stage.
Certainly, as we're getting ever closer to the start of this race. We got about 1.75 miles to go before we turn them loose for 70 laps here at Daytona. These trucks, these guys have put on great races all season long in the trucks. Not their favorite car to drive, and it hasn't been right up until the new handling in the aero model for the Cup cars, which is why there is not a Cup car in the playoffs. This could be a very trying race for some of these guys. They have to try to handle these trucks.
I'd say this and the Xfinity cars at Talladega have to be two of the best combinations that these guys use. And Amir SC, and it's always talked about it too. It's a very well used combination. So these guys should know this package pretty well here tonight.
Absolutely. As they come off of turn number 4, getting set to go for the first round of playoff action here in the 2021 spring season. 80 laps here at Daytona. We're green.
We're giving Kessler an excellent push there. Kessler did a fantastic job to get the jump there. And it'd be interesting to see if he tries to clear, which he does. So that's very impressive there by Kessler to use a power move to get right to the bottom, right out front.
Now, we have seen this out of Nick Kessler before. He will start on the front row. He'll lead the first lap. He'll hang out up in the front for a little bit, and then he'll dip out within the first 4 or 5 laps. But boy, Connor Trafari really wiggling in that 48 second car on the inside line.
Yeah, he's looking pretty loose, and I'd have to say that's pretty... If I'm Kessler, I'm going to drop to the back pretty quickly here. Like you just mentioned, it's kind of been the theme of his season. Lead a lap in the initial start, drop to the back. But it also is the playoffs. It might be at a different mentality compared to what we're used to seeing for some of these guys. He might just stay at the front all night long.
Now, Kessler is not in the playoffs, unfortunately for him. He did have that little sabbatical in the middle of the year that kind of knocked him out of contention there. Right now, 2nd through 6th are in the playoffs, and you can see up on the top there, the playoff drivers are noted in gold. So you always know who's in the playoffs, and right on cue, Nick Kessler leads his lap and then falls to the back.
Just like clockwork.
So it's almost as if he's done that a time or two. He kind of knew it was coming. As Chris Worrell now slides in front of Connor Trafari, he will take the lead of this race, about to come down to lap number 3. Zashawn Dura getting a nice push on the outside line from Jason Papp. Elijah Innes right there as well.
This top lane is looking very established, actually. We talked a lot with this combination, how the bottom is always king, and if you can get enough people to work on that top lane, the top lane is working. And there is surprisingly some good numbers on the top lane, especially with how early this race is now Trafari, he'll dip to the back as well. So this will be interesting to see as this race progresses how this top lane does work.
Trafari trying to save that truck right now, has moved to the back. Still Chris Worrell as we ride on board with Elijah Innes looking forward and now back off of that number 68 Petronas machine. Just trying to keep it steady on that outside line, and you can see just how close these guys are getting together and how much movement there is in these trucks, even in a straight line.
Yeah, there's a ton of movement in these trucks, and a lot of that has to do with the aero weight coming off these trucks. the air is not clean at all, and that air hits you in different ways on these trucks. So it's most prevalent with the trucks. If you ever watch a real life truck race, you think they're totally incompetent drivers that they can't drive straight. Well, that's just the air that's just throwing them everywhere. And that affected really well here in iRacing as well.
Should we call it 50-50 actually, or are we going to leave that alone?
I'd say leave it alone.
Okay. So Worrell still being pushed by Greg McConey up here at the front of this field, as Sean Dura getting a very nice push still from Jason Papp, and that push will be good enough to give Dura the lap lead there. The top 4 trucks, all playoff contenders. As Connor Trafari, we saw him start on the pole. He's all the way back at 17th now, running with the guy who is sitting to his flank, Nick Kessler.
Yeah, and I don't blame them one bit, because, they have to preserve their car. You don't want to be in a position where, we're on if we're on lap 20 and they have a wrecked car like we saw, a couple weeks ago. The last time we had this combination, remember the 2 big wrecks that took out a huge chunk of the field. You don't want to be one of those guys early on in this race here.
Oh, you absolutely do not. As Sean Dura now getting a push from Chris Worrell on the inside, and that's what started one of those big wrecks, was just that awkward push as the truck was pushing up off the corner. That'll give Jason Papp enough momentum to take the race lead, and now Aaron Tribble has pushed Elijah Innes to the race lead on the outside. That truck you heard passing, that was Shane Newens, who started from pit road. He is about to get sucked up into this field and be the only truck 1 lap down.
This top lane, I'm very surprised with how well and efficient it is. It's doing a lot better than I actually envisioned it doing there. But the thing about it is that whoever gets to the front in that top group, they immediately drop to the bottom. And it's kind of just letting this top lane continue its momentum forward, because when they drop to the bottom, my goodness, there.
Riding on board with Elijah Innes there, looking back at Jason Papp, who had to make a whirly of a save on that inside line. That gives Aaron Tribble the momentum to go up. And you're right, Nate, it's we've seen it all year long with these guys jump up to the top and then jump down to the bottom once you get clear.
And it'd be interesting to see if you
caution is out in the back.
Goodness.
It's Nick Kessler in the back, and it looks like that's the 29 of Dan Brasington as well. Shane Posey involved in the 83, and now Posey and Brasington both playoff contenders here. So we'll try to see what happened to these guys. This is coming off of turn 2. Kessler just, talk about giving a bump in the wrong spot. And Kessler just clipped Posey, and that turned him right down into Brasington. Both of those two took a very hard hit.
Yeah, and that's killed. That's definitely killed Brasington's night. That's killed Posey's night. That killed Kessler's night. That killed everybody's night that got caught up in that incident there.
Just took a bump right on that rear corner. And you see it so often, especially in the Cup Series. That right rear corner, we'll take a look inside of Brasington's truck here. Just how quick this happens. No time to react, couldn't even see it coming.
That sucks for Loxton as well. I mean, he was just riding in the back, had no plans to even push the car, and all of a sudden everything just sweeps to the bottom and sweeps right up into him. So Crash has unfortunately crashed tonight here early.
So Nick Kessler, I know what you did. Nick Kessler, Shane Posey, Dustin Loxton, and Dan Brasington involved in the first accident of the night at the back of the field. And that will now give us a chance to see who is coming into pit road. It appears to be just about everyone. So everyone makes their way into their respective pit boxes. Not expected to see a lot of tire stops there. I think Greg McConey actually had an issue getting into his box. Now the driver's starting to make their exits. Some of them taking fuel only, like Trifari and Tribble and Decker, pardon me. Most of them taking 4.
It's very interesting that they take a tire stop here because we've only done 9 laps in this race now, and really that doesn't really make a difference, especially on tire wear here. So unless if they're the people who took tires are planning on maybe using this set for most of the race, it'll be interesting to see how this progresses for them now.
The track's not that hot either. It is a rather cool racetrack we have here. Ambient temperature here at Daytona is 73 degrees. Track temperature 76. Wind is rather calm here tonight. So it's a rather nice night here at Daytona Beach, and we are, 7-8 days away from that date actually being correct. May 15th is approaching. It's standard sim date.
Is that the standard sim date? I did not know that, actually, if that's true.
I mean, every single session we've gone into, it's always been the 15th of May.
Interesting. Maybe that's someone's birthday. I do use birthdays quite often whenever I schedule sessions, so we should ask.
That would be interesting to find out. Who at iRacing? If anyone knows, please feel free in the chat to enlighten us here. If anyone knows whose birthday it is on May 15th that works for iRacing.
Maybe it's just a celebrity.
I could do a quick Google search on that, but what's the fun in that?
Already beating you to it. Really, it's nobody that famous, honestly.
Unfortunately, Terry Underwood, fortunately, the 83 was not able to make it through that last one. All 4 of those guys are still on pit road right now, getting service done to their machines. As we get ready to restart this race here, we'll take lap 11 of 80 as we cross the line for the first time.
And you got to think, these guys at the front, they weren't caught up in that, but they're maybe wondering, okay, incidents can happen at the back. They can happen up here too. So it'll be interesting to see if the progression level of aggressiveness goes up a little bit here, if we see it diminish a little bit as well.
We almost saw it right up here at the front with Jason Papp right up at the front of this field as we get set to go back to green flag racing here from Daytona. Pace car is off. Tribble is going. We are back to green flag racing with 70 laps to go here in the first round of the playoffs.
And that top lane has done a fantastic job again with that start. It seems like the bottom just doesn't quite have that juice in the initial stage of the run, which is kind of interesting to say the least.
Could also be who is in that bottom lane, and right now Zishan Dura is taking a huge chunk out of the back bumper of that number 22 of Aaron Tribble right at the front of this field, pushing him to the lead. GT Park right there as well. Michael Anthony, who's always dangerous at these races, sitting there, the 4th car on the inside line. And right now, Ryan Decker, who we have not seen much in this series this season, takes to the outside looking for that race lead.
Yeah, that top lane, like we mentioned, it seems like we're underestimating it quite a bit here, but that top lane has done quite well. It just depends on who's in it and what momentum you can gain by it. And it also probably has to do with the factor of who's leading that bottom lane too. If they're strong in that bottom lane, that top lane might not be as effective as we've seen it so far tonight. It's the first time we've seen Tribble running that bottom lane at the point.
Take a look a little bit further back here. This is on board of John LeBombard as Chris Morrell really jumps to his inside there, and John trying to look through the middle of this field here. Looks like he's falling towards the back, trying to save that number 95. And we've seen him have a couple of very good finishes by doing just that.
Yeah, and he's been that guy that we mentioned about 5 laps to go. We're like, where did he come from? And he's been that guy the entire season. We just see him pop up and we're like, where did he come from? So seeing him at the front here early is kind of interesting to say the least. Well, not quite at the front, but further up than usually at this point of the race.
I believe that is Shane Newens again up here, about to be lapped once again. It is the number 98 of Shane Newens. So he will fall yet another lap down. He is right now the only car that is not on the lead lap. Marcus Adams in the 31, I believe, was a lap down as well. He has gotten his lap back. It is at the back end of this group in that purple and black, number 31. And right now, his front starting to spread out a little bit as Chris Worrell trying to create a third lane with Elijah Innes, and it's certainly working.
It is working, and that's kind of impressive to say the least, because usually we don't see that third lane develop here at Daytona, but it is clearly developing, and it's developed now. It's not developing, it is now developed.
Certainly has, as we'll look on board. So it's like to be on the outside of 3 wide here at Daytona, on board of Chris Worrell pushing through, and he will jump right down in front of Ryan Decker. He will take that second position as Elijah Innes goes back up to the front.
Yeah, that was a very strong run. Worrell's been very good as a pusher this entire season. We've noted how strong he can be, and he just, by brute strength. Oh, look at the wiggle there by Tribble.
Yeah, he got a big movement there, did Tribble, and that may have been caused by Innes coming down and sort of slowing that line up, kind of jumbled everybody up. And now that will allow Chris Worrell to jump up into the race lead. Now remember, going back to last season, if I remember correctly, I believe it was Chris Worrell who had the championship lead going into the season finale and was not able to close it down, trying to do the same thing, put himself in the same position here this week.
This helps so much if you can just get that first win, because that's a huge confidence booster, especially at the beginning of these playoffs here, because, you know, it's going to be competitive. You're going to see plenty of guys drive their tails off to win races here. So the competitiveness is going to be there. And if you get that first attack, you get the first punch in, that's extremely important for whoever wins tonight, really.
And again, just the same way it is in the Cup Series in real life, as boy, Aaron Tribble took a big run to that third lane, trying to get out there all by himself to try to pick up some positions. And wow, he took one heck of a run and tried to use it to his advantage. Now, there's the 6 of Worrell sliding through the grass, and Worrell will save that truck.
That was kind of a halfway down, not really committing there by Pap, and that kind of, Worrell was being pushed. He had nowhere to go there.
It's said so often in Superspeedway racing, you have to commit to your moves. You cannot make a half move. You cannot hesitate. And we'll take a look and see what happened here with Chris Worrell, and that's exactly what looks like what happened. Pap hesitated. It looked as though the 28 was pushing him through, and unfortunately it's Worrell who loses out on all that time and position.
And that's big for Pap too, because now he's got significant left rear quarter damage because of that too. So with GT Park pushing him here, it'll be interesting to see how that affects, you know, that bottom lane now with Pap on the bottom there leading it.
On board with Jason Pap, and that rear damage might be on the bottom there because we can't see it up from where we are, so it's probably in the lower corner of that left rear. Zach Bowerman now in that number 9 GM Goodwrench Chevrolet up at the top, being pushed by Aaron Tribble. So boy, that move for Tribble really worked out.
And Tribble got very quickly back to the front, so that's a very strong showing for him to know that he can get to the front that quickly. That everyone should take note of that, because that can be important later in the race if, you know, the situation arises for that.
Jason Pap now clear of the number 9 on that outside line. Only 4 trucks on that outside, and now it's the outside line as you expect, coming out of turn 4 here, has that momentum, and Bowerman goes right to the inside, leaving Tribble and Dura to fend for themselves on the outside line. GT Park will now jump up in front of the 68, and I guess depending upon where he finishes and what he does, we'll figure out if that's a Hamilton or a Bottas scheme tonight.
Oh, that's pretty savage, honestly.
It's not as savage as what Bottas said about him possibly losing his ride this season. Did you read that or hear about that?
I did.
That was great. For those of you who didn't,
it's a shame there's no Red Bull cars in the field tonight.
For those of you who didn't hear, Valtteri Bottas at some point this week was asked if he was concerned about possibly losing his ride mid-season. He said, "No, I'm not concerned. There's only one team in this grid that does that." Obviously throwing shade at Red Bull, and that, I think, was a little bit more savage than what I just said.
Yeah, it probably was.
As Aaron Tribble and Zach Bowerman now leading up through this field. Another guy who's made his way up through the field after not qualifying is the 00 of Ryan Worley. The 4th car on the outside line now becomes the 6th car on the inside line. Worley did not take a time in qualifying and has worked his way up very, very nicely in that 00. Has gotten himself just inside the top 10 and is in a pretty nice place right now. He's not really blocked in just in case something happens in front of him.
Yeah, he's taking care of his car. He's taking off the boxes at the moment. That's what you got to do in these races. Take off the boxes. You get to the end of the race and you've ticked off most of the boxes, and it makes it a lot easier to take off that final box. So he's doing what he needs to do. Basically, everyone in the field is running their race at the moment, doing what they think they need to do to win this race. We're seeing people run where they want to run at the moment.
Again, for those of you who are just joining us, we are in the first round of the playoffs as the field goes past the damaged Nick Kessler. The drivers up on top that are highlighted in gold, those are the championship 16. The drivers who are eligible to win the championship over the next 7 weeks. The drivers who are not are here to try to spoil the party. And just as in real life, drivers who win in this first round are automatically locked into the next round. And then those who win in the next round are automatically locked into the championship 4 come the end of the season. That will be in the Xfinity cars here, unless they prove something on Monday night because of what came out earlier this week.
That in itself will be interesting too, because that's an entirely untested package around this track in real life, regardless, and in terms of in the sim too, because nobody expected it to be released. And then the bombshell on Wednesday night, it was Wednesday night, that iRacing was releasing that car. Very interesting to a lot of people that haven't been able to do a whole lot of testing with it yet.
For those of you who are not sure of what we're talking about, we know that NASCAR is going to their next-gen model next season. Well, iRacing has released it this past Wednesday and are allowing fans of the simulation to take it for a spin. And on Monday night, not only is it going to be the throwback race at Darlington for the Rowdy Energy Cup Series, it will also be in the next-gen car. So the races for the Rowdy Energy Cup Series on Monday night will be in that next-gen car from this week at Darlington on through the end of the season. And depending upon the aero package and how it reacts here on a Superspeedway, we might see it come to a race in the playoffs here, because right now we have, I think, 2 truck races, 4 Xfinity races, and 1 ARCA race in the playoffs right now, as these drivers not a fan of the new aero package on the Cup cars for the Superspeedways.
Just watching this pack here at the front, it's very settled at the moment. Not a whole lot of pushing going on behind these front two, and that you kind of have to expect that. Those guys are wanting to ride around, make it to the pit stops. We will see pit stops here, I'd imagine, with the 75% fuel flow tonight, I'd imagine we're going to see pit stops in about 15 to 20 laps time. So we're about halfway through the fuel run at this point. It should be interesting to see if people are trying to hit a fuel number. Remember, we're doing 80 laps tonight. If you can save enough fuel for these guys in the back, maybe make something happen on strategy compared to these guys at the front.
It's a very, very good possibility. And while these guys are sort of settled down up here at the front, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break and settle ourselves down up here in the booth. We are working lap 25, about to come to lap 26 of 80 here in the first round of the playoffs for the Circle B Diecast Superspeedway Series. We will be right back right after this. You're watching the Circle B Diecast Superspeedway Series playoff round number 1 here from the Daytona International Speedway. And right now, Elijah Innes, you just saw on break, has taken over the race lead here from Connor Trafari, Deshaun Dura, there it is. And now Ryan Worley has gotten up into the mix here in the 4th position as we inch closer and closer to green flag pit stops.
Another thing to mention, we noticed this during our broadcast break that we had there, but Innes is not having the clearest internet connection, and the fact that he's leading the bottom lane now, gonna get drafted right by Trafari there, and it'll be interesting to see if that makes an effect now as what a big wiggle! Oh!
Body slam of the 00, Aaron Tribble goes wild. Elijah Innes is spun around backwards in turn one. Still somehow green here. Boy, as Elijah Innes just went for a wild ride. Boy, oh boy, that was a big hit. Joe Gauthier also getting a piece of it. Boy, John LeBombard did a fantastic job to lock it down.
I really don't understand how that wasn't a yellow.
I don't either, honestly. And we'll take a look here. This is from, hopefully it's not a mile and a half back here. Oh, it is, unfortunately. Let's go back. Let's fast forward time a little bit. There, he's already gone there. I mean, that was a big old shunt. Is riding on board with Innes right now. He just clips the apron. John LeBombard doing a fantastic job of locking it down. There's Aaron Tribble who went off, trying to avoid, and now, as we go back up to the front, that is Greg McConey, and pretty much all of the dudes racing cars except for Brandon Wilson now up here in this front group. The top 8 have been able to break away, trying to avoid that that's 68 of, I think we can confirm now that is Valtteri Bottas in the car.
Oh.
That was savage.
And it's interesting how they went single file immediately afterwards. Now they're at the point, okay, let's get the green flag pit stops. Notice how the one guy that's running the top lane, though, happens to be one guy that actually punted a Tribble to the bottom there. Is Jason Papp there. So Pat might have some front end damage there, but he's showing that he might not.
No, he does have a crinkled up front end of that number 1 Circle B Diecast Chevrolet. Doesn't seem to be affecting him all that much as Ryan Decker pushes him right up to the race lead, and with his teammate leading the inside lane, it's going to be a nice controlled return back to the inside line for the one of Jason Papp.
Damn, it just helps a guy out and gets left out in the dust. I feel sorry for the guy.
As you do. So now let's take a look here and see where these guys have all spread out to. So right now up here at the front, it's Pat McConey, Worley, Park, Bowerman, Dura, Decker, and Trafari. And if you're thinking, well, that seems a little unfair, is it? Well, everyone's coming in now. Oh, and GT Park is around. GT Park around in pit road. That's front end damage for him, and I think Ryan Worley may have caught a piece of that as well.
And that's just a case of too much rear braking it, trying to get slowed down. He also was a little bit worried there. He almost hit McConey there.
Let's take a look. We'll get on board with GT Park coming into pit road. Really hot in. And yeah, I think he got, I don't think he was expecting McConey to take that tight a line on entry.
You can see the rear, if you go out, like an outboard shot, you can see the rear end actually start to hop right before he spins out there.
See if the camera view here will be kind enough to show that. And oh yeah, definitely see it there. And Ryan Worley doing a fantastic job to not get anything. He had to really crank that car down. And fortunately for him, all clear and good. Mark McFadden and Ernie Ludwig took over the race lead. Those two are now in pit road. And now Greg McConey, coming around by himself, will become the new race leader. As there he goes past Ludwig and McFadden.
It's interesting to know how everybody is pretty much stuck together there, actually, with that pack. Usually we see them more spread out than that, but they were all pretty much stepping stone together there. So that's pretty impressive. About 25 laps we saw for those guys there on a green flag stop.
Lap 8 to lap 33 or 34 was the pit lane delta. And usually, we talk about it a lot, we'll see the pack come in, and it'll come in as a pack of 8 and come out as a pack of 5 or 6. Not the case here. This came in as a pack of 8, came out as a pack of 7, and we know why. Number 8 had dipped out of that. It's because he nosed it into the fence.
So now you're at a 2-stop race now, we've determined, because if we're going off the 25 lap formula, they're got to make their second stop around lap 73-ish, 74-ish if I had to guess.
I think it's 63, 64.
You're gonna even do math. I really don't want to do math. I'm gonna do math.
Well,
now.
we're almost at lap 40, so 20 up from 40 is 60, and then the 5. Pit window opens, I would say, between 61 and 65. Yes.
Okay, maybe
would
you
make
are right.
Sense.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right. Math is hard, folks. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, of the 4 broadcast, well, 5 really that we hear on. Actually, I can't even say 5 of the 7 broadcasters that we hear normally on this network. None of them could do math. I think only maybe 2 or 3 does the English good, and yeah, that's pretty much what you got. That's ESPN for you. No
really
math
sad.
And no English.
Really sad considering I deal with numbers all day, every day, and that's kind of important with what I do. So
I've been having to work with numbers recently too, and I will very much say not a fan of numbers either. But a couple of numbers that we should be worrying about, however, is the distance between Greg McConey, who is at the back end of this front group, and Chris Worrell, who's at the front end of the second group. This second group here was about 6 seconds behind once the run of pit stops had started. They are now at 3.5. This group is absolutely flying up to the front group, and you could tell the graphic there, they have been chomping away at this lead gap.
That's what happens when you get organized. Tell each other, hey, let's work together. Let's get this pack going to the front here. That's exactly what's happening at the moment. They are moving forward at a high rate of speed.
And that's the gap that you're seeing there, that big, long line at the very bottom of that graph now is the lap that those guys came into pit road. They've been taking a good second a lap out of the front group, between a second and a half a second a lap out of the front group. That has been incredibly impressive for these guys.
They're about 2 to 3 laps away from catching the wake of McConey here. Actually, they probably could get it now if they really wanted to. So they're going to get way quicker here in just a couple of laps here.
Trying to see off the back of McConey's car, and unfortunately it's a Ford, and I don't have the camera pack for the Ford, so there you go. You can see there, though, there's a nice little representative difference between the two groups. Is now they will gain Aaron Tribble, and the reason why Tribble's back in this group again is because he had to catch up after getting spun off there in that incident on lap 34. Or 32, rather, sorry.
And that's important that Tribble stays where he's at, because there is a yellow. He's the recipient of the lucky dog. And we know he's got the pace to win tonight. We saw him fly to the front there in a matter of laps. So it should be interesting to see if he can able to get to the front pretty quickly if there is a lucky dog opportunity for him.
Chris Morrell now has certainly gained the draft of that front group, and this front group, which was a group of 7, is about to turn back into a group of 12 here as the 3 balls out drivers plus John LeBombard and Brandon Wilson have done an absolutely phenomenal job at getting back up to the front of this field, and Worrell is taking it right to the outside with Marcus Adams stuck right to him in the 31.
You might as well. You got all the momentum in the world. You might as well continue to use it. Look at the block by Tribble. Oh my goodness!
Yeah, that was a little that was a little dangerous, and you saw it on board of Marcus Adams, number 31. Now Worrell trying to push Greg McConey up to the front. And riding on board with Adams, he's trying to coax Worrell up to the top side. Finally does go. McConey tries to put on a block to no avail.
Don't know if that block by Trimble was the best move for him because he fell to the back of the pack pretty quickly there. So maybe not the best move for Trimble there, but that top lane has done a fantastic job with Worrell leading it because he had the biggest role of steam, and it lasted there for like 2 laps in that pack.
He's got 2 of his teammates lined up right behind him as well, so that's certainly going to help that group run up towards the front. Aaron Tribble has locked onto the back of this group up here on the outside line, and Worrell goes right up to the front, and he is not leaving his teammate out to dry. He is going to try to bring him right up to the front with him.
That top lane is just ridiculously strong at the moment. And Worrell drops to the bottom. I don't know why, because he had all the momentum in the world working with Adams there. I'd just stay up there with him, honestly.
And Adams now might get the push from Michael Anthony to go down into the front. Most of these drivers in this group here are running for the playoffs. Playoff drivers are noted up there on the top in gold. Drivers who are not in gold are not playoff or championship eligible. As we get past a group of slower cars, Marcus Adams just ever so slightly nosing ahead of the 6.
Yeah, Worrell looks like he is the car to beat at the moment. He can work both lanes pretty effectively. But it seems like if you are on the top and you got a really strong pusher behind you, that's where you want to be at. It's interesting to see, who's been the grid pusher tonight. Worrell has definitely been an excellent pusher. Adams, we just noted, is an excellent pusher. Tribble, if he gets the right person alongside of him, he is also an excellent pusher. So as this night goes on, people are learning more often. They're going to want to be in that position with the guy that's really strong right behind them.
Certainly, who can lead and who can push is certainly going to be something you're going to want to know come the end of this thing, as we only have about 35 and a half laps to go here at Daytona for round 1 of the playoffs. And Worrell right now able to get a little bit of a push from Jason Papp, able to get out into the front. Clean air, and just now Papp just about had a clearance on the outside line. Then Marcus Adams came right back up in the 31.
We're kind of back to the status quo of where we were at earlier before the pit stops there, and actually that incident with Innes, a couple cars on the top, spread out all the way through the back of the pack, so that we're back to the status quo we've seen all night long here. And we're back to just relaxing here, waiting for the pit stops to happen, it seems like.
Absolutely, and you guys are being treated to an absolutely fantastic race. Only one caution back on lap 8 for a multi-car spin in the back involving Nick Kessler, Dustin Logston, Dan Brazenton, and Shane Posey. We've had another incident with Elijah Innes and Aaron Tribble. That one did not bring out the caution just before the pit cycle had begun. GT Park nosing it into the wall on the pit stop. And that is pretty much your race caught up here as we trickle down closer and closer to 30 laps to go here from Daytona. Chris Worrell and Jason Papp on that inside line with a big push, trying to push him and keep him ahead of Marcus Adams and Michael Anthony.
You got to think here, what's the end game for some of these guys here? Are they trying to learn, or are they just trying to ride here? You got to think guys like Trafari and Worley and Decker, they're just sitting there. They're like, all right, guys, let's see what you got. Let's see if I can learn from back here what you guys are capable of. You got to think that's what they're doing. They're just trying to absorb as much information for the end of this race here.
It certainly looks as though it would be a plan. So right now it is the top 12. Jumping back out from this top 12, there is the next pair of cars. That is Mark McFadden in the 71 and Ernie Ludwig in the 16. These guys are running 13th and 14th position right now, some 18 seconds off that lead pack that we have been watching. These guys are the last cars on the lead lap. Aaron Tribble in 15th position, who is running up in the front pack, is the lucky dog at the moment. And unless we get a caution here, he might be battling with McFadden and Ludwig before too long, because we'll bring up the track map here. That lead pack is coming out of turn 2. See the 71 down there at the bottom of the track map, just crossing the start-finish line.
Yeah, that's still plenty of a gap there. I wouldn't imagine that, Tribble needs to be thinking about passing these guys at the moment, but it's got to be in the back of your mind here. They're going to have two cars that are working together. They're not going to be as slow as a single car by themselves, so they can try to stay in front of this group. So Tribble has to start thinking about that when they get to that point, or probably a long ways away from that. He might be just fine.
Yeah, he's not in imminent danger, is Aaron Tribble, of having to fight those guys. But boy, that's Zach Bowerman there in the middle of that group in the number 9, getting a little wild on the outside line, is able to settle it down. Outside line now consisting of Marcus Adams, Michael Anthony, Zach Bowerman, Aaron Tribble, and Connor Trafari on that outside line. The rest of the guys in the bottom lane up here in this front group that's being tailed by Greg McConey and John LeBombard at the very back of this.
John, remember, due to the incident with Ennis, he had to slam on the brakes and lost every bit of momentum here. So that's kind of impressive how he's managed to tap onto the back of this group here. Very impressive, I must say, by John.
You just saw Dustin Logston get into the wall on the outside line in an attempt to get away from these guys and get out of their way so these guys can race. As Jason Papp now jumps up to try to lead that outside line from Marcus Adams. Zishan Dura on the inside line now pushing Chris Worrell. And Jason Papp, we've seen how good he's been able to lead a line here tonight. Marcus Adams and Michael Anthony, however, not really giving him too much of a push.
Yeah, it's kind of impressive to see how that top lane has been doing. But it seems like he's just kind of not quite gotten used to having a pusher other than Worrell up there. So it'll be interesting to see as this race progresses what Adams can do maybe. But at the moment, he just doesn't seem like he has it with anyone else other than Worrell.
Well, Adams and Anthony are both here in an effort to play spoiler and try to get their teammate in the 6 a championship. Again, he had just missed out on it last season.
Ooh.
And now they're going to try to get it to him as Worrell made a slow move up to that outside line, really stacked the field up, and now puts a big block on Zishan Dura up at the front and the bottom.
That's confidence. You have to be confident to make that move. And, that was a kind of slow move on Pap there, but that was very, decisive there on Dara there. So that's good on, Worrell to know he's clear, but you're only going to get so many shots to do that.
Exactly right. As now Worrell running that inside line again with Dura. That was Aaron Tribble that was poking his nose out in that blue number 22 on the outside line. Now Jason Papp getting a shot from Marcus Adams on the outside, trying to work their way back up to the front. And once again, Tribble poking out to that third lane.
You gotta think Tribble just wants to lead and not be actually lapped down and not have to rely on that lucky dog. But I mean, he's not in a position yet where he needs to really worry about that, if I had to guess. So if I'm just Aaron, I'd just settle down. And this is part we talked about this early in the season, how for so young he looks so mature behind the wheel. But there's certain things you still have to learn, and this is probably one of the learning experiences for Tribble. It's just you're got to be content where you're at, especially where he's at, because you don't want to cause a wreck if you're him, because then you don't get the lucky dog.
He's driving like me on the Long Island Expressway right now. I want absolutely nobody in front of me. I don't care what speed I go after that. Just as long as no one's in front of me, I'm happy. Because running behind somebody in these super speedway races could be just as exhausting as being out in front looking at your mirror. Just the constant fluttering of the throttle, making sure you don't just completely run over the guy in front of you. It's tiring being anywhere in a super speedway pack.
Oh, absolutely is, and that's kind of the guys like Trafari. They've been, just kind of coasting around the racetrack there. They haven't really worked a whole lot since this green flag runs kind of started here. We haven't really talked about them either because they're just kind of coasting in the back. So they're not really working that hard. They're doing the exact same thing that we just discussed. They're fluttering the throttle, they're riding around, but they're not really working that hard compared to the rest of these guys at the front like Worrell and Pap.
And some of these guys, including myself, will be in a test session after this, trying to work on those next-gen cars to see how well they would handle in a super speedway configuration, to see if they want to put the next-gen car into the playoffs. So that will be happening right after this race, as they're coming up on Dustin Longston and Joe Gauthier. And for Gauthier, this is not a good race for him. Being one of the drivers in the playoffs, that 67 has not had a good day, involved in an accident that was not his fault.
And all he's doing right now is just doing laps, trying to reduce the damage, because, if he can gain any positions that he can from just doing laps, he's done quite well. He's getting scored in the 16th position. And let's just say there's an incident involving some of these guys up here, takes out quite a bit of cars. He could manage a really decent position compared to some of these guys like, Dan Brazington and some of the other playoff contenders that got knocked out early.
Dan Brazington and Shane Posey are no longer participating in this race. Shane Newens is done as well. I believe Nick Kessler, Elijah Innes, and GT Park have also called it quits here for this evening. Dustin Longston is not that far away from passing Park, Innes, and Kessler on track. And Joe Gauthier right now would need a big accident right around this point in the race if he wants to make up a meaningful amount of positions, as he is 5 laps down at the moment.
Dan Brazington is doing laps, actually, so he is
out there.
So he's doing something.
Oh, he is. He
can still gain some spots on Park and Innes. So he's doing what he has to do at the moment here.
The man spent 40 minutes on pit road and is now back on the racetrack. Dan Brazington, the winner of the Perseverance Award, as here comes the Balls Out Racing team, and Worrell really hot going into pit road.
I'm gonna bet he got busted, because that was a lot. He came in there very hot, and I would be very surprised if he made the speed. But it looks like he may have.
And he blows his pit box there, so that's a couple second penalty, a self-inflicted penalty there on his own. As we'll see what happens with Chris Worrell. There go the two teammates, and nope, Worrell was good to go. They all come out right together. Different order, but still together.
Interested to see if anyone else pits this time here. Looks like a couple of the guys on the bottom.
Yep, here they come. A little bit earlier than what we were expecting. It's all the dudes racing cars now have all come in. Pap, McConey, Worley, and Wilson have all decided to come in. John LeBombard trailing this quartet up here. Now that leaves Dura, Bowerman, Trafari, and Ryan Decker up at the front of this field that have not yet come into pit. Aaron Tribble's in there as well. Would have to assume he's going to pit with these guys.
And that's just being forced, your hand being forced there. You got people short pitting. They're going to be going around the track at full speed, so it makes sense for them to pit right away. I'd have to imagine that these guys are also going to pit this time as well.
Now the dudes racing guys, we know that they are really guys who are masters of short pitting and love that short pit strategy, as all these guys now come into pit road. All of them looking clean. Right now, McConey is the leader of the race, but look at that red and white nose right there. That is Michael Anthony. He is going to be coming with that team at full song. Down the back straightaway, it should be Michael Anthony taking over the effective race lead, as Greg McConey will get past as if he were standing still.
It's going to be interesting to know if these two let Worrell just basically go to the front.
There they
and
go.
Basically
They're
what they
doing that.
do. So Anthony and Adams will be the rear gunners here, and that will be very important. It'll be interesting to see if this front pack can maybe get out in front. They got a lot of. I don't think they will actually get out in front of them.
I don't think so. I think they'll come out right in the middle of the dudes racing group that came in. There go the. Boy, that's a. Oh, that was an off move by Dura. You know they're coming. We saw this 2 weeks ago as well, the last race we did. Boy, that's just. We said the same thing 2 weeks ago. That, I don't know if that would have. That didn't look kosher to me.
I mean, they're much more lower than what we saw 2 weeks ago. And you got to make the case of, does Adams get a penalty, though, for that? Because he did pass cars below the line.
I would say no. I mean, for me, watching what happened, I would say no, because that's wreck avoidance right there. It's either wreck and I'm out, or I go below the yellow line and save all of us. If he gets a penalty there, that's over the top. That's unfortunate if he does get a penalty there. He really shouldn't.
But you can make the case, too, with that playing the devil's advocate, that the other two guys in front of him did get by clean enough on the outside there. So that's a very, it's 50-50 if you ask me on what actually happens here.
And my response to you would be, well, the two in front of him can see what's coming.
Correct.
He can't. So he's reacting. He's seeing that a split second before it happens, and he's making a split-second judgment as now Michael Anthony jumps up to try to block off Greg McConey on that outside line. So Anthony is going to take the race lead. Worrell, and boy, McConey had a big slide there in the middle of the field, and now around goes the middle of the field. Jason Papp involved. Brandon Wilson hits the inside wall hard. Caution is out with 19 to go.
And that was all started there with that top lane just getting all jumbled up. And that was kind of impressive how they kind of kept it straight for that long until Pat just, trying to get straightened out, just didn't quite see Wilson there by the looks of it.
All of the dudes racing cars involved in that one. Take a look at it here down the back straightaway, and we'll jump overhead and try to get a better view of that. There's McConey and Papp, and then Papp and Wilson is where it really came in, as McConey takes that hit on the outside. We'll take a look again. This is Jason Papp in the one. He's going to get turned by his teammate and then turns his other teammate. And both of them, Wilson hitting on the inside wall harder than Papp did, but still significant hits for both of those drivers.
And that's important for Worrell, because he had his two rear gunners helping him out there so that McConey didn't get that run. You can make the case of, that may have started the incident there, but they're fully entitled to do that, though. They're fully entitled to do that.
Absolutely right. And there wasn't anyone that was making a big move there. It was the dudes racing cars that were trying to get around Michael Anthony. So those guys really did nothing wrong in that scenario.
They're all pitting.
Yes, they are. Top off the fuel. Make sure we don't have any worries here. And what we're going to do is we are going to step aside while these guys are in their pit cycle. We will step aside as well. We will bring you the final about 15 laps of the first playoff round for the Circle B Diecast Superspeedway Series right here on ESPN. Don't go anywhere. Tonight's broadcast of the Circle B Diecast Superspeedway Series is brought to you by DiecastNuts.com. Post your own diecast collection, add or trade to it in the shop, and see other members' collections at DiecastNuts.com and on Facebook at DiecastNuts. And by Rocket Racing Setups. Rocket Racing Setups is one of the leading setup builders for the iRacing community. Find dirt and asphalt setups, tuning guides, fuel sheets, and much more at RocketRacingSetups.com today. Tonight's race is also brought to you by your series sponsors, Rowdy Energy, CircleBDiecast.com, Midwest Motor Customs, iRacing iFlag, and Butt Kicker. And the series thanks you for your continued support. About to go back to green flag racing here. 15 laps to go from the Daytona International Speedway in the first round of the playoffs. A big wreck has just taken out 3 of the 4 Dudes Racing Team cars. As we go back to green flag racing, Connor Trafari up at the front, the only one that did not pit under that last caution.
And he only has 4 laps older tires than everybody else, so that might make a difference if we get to a green flag checkered scenario. But, you know, as Worrell is really all over the rear end of Trafari here.
Yep, he absolutely is trying to get back up to the front. Also worth noting, Greg McConey on the outside in the 12 did not take tires. It was a fuel stop for him, just a 7-second stop in his box. May have taken right side tires only, but it was not a 4-tire stop like everybody else took, as now 3 cars now working that outside line. McConey, Anthony, and Bowerman working that outside line, with Trafari, Worrell, and Adams on the inside line, with John LeBombard and 2 guys that we said desperately needed a caution. Mark McFadden and Ernie Ludwig are now right in the mix.
Kind of like, where did he come from? And that's basically the case that we just used there. They've kind of just stuck around and managed to stay in the lap, but Worrell hopping to the top with McConey just pushing him. That's a really strong combo. Not as strong as his teammates tonight, maybe, but, you know, Worrell, he's got teammates around him to help him out here.
Absolutely does, as Worrell and those 2 teammates are in it for him at the moment. Neither Anthony nor Adams are running for the championship. It is just Worrell, and those guys are going to be doing everything they possibly can to make sure he comes home with victory here, maybe not just in this race, but in the championship as well.
Like we said earlier in the broadcast, this is the first stepping stone to that. So if, you know, wow, what a big move there.
Certainly was a huge move for Marcus Adams up to that outside line. He now has Chris Worrell right behind him. Both of those drivers have cleared Connor Trafari. Worrell tries to go back up to the outside. McConey lets him in. Adams is going to stick to the inside line. And McConey is in a spot where he really doesn't want to be. Between 2 Dudes Racing, between 2 Balls Energy cars, and Worrell swings to the inside. I don't think he had a choice in that.
And now this is massive because McConey is literally in no man's land. He can literally have Anthony slam on the brakes and give him 0 help here, while Worrell has all the help in the world that he could use with Adams. So we're using this teammate dynamic a lot, but it's very important to understand how significant this is.
It absolutely is. And again, all of McConey's teammates were taken out in that last wreck, so McConey now has absolutely no help really for the duration of this race. And you can see just how much that could possibly affect him, as those 2 cars on the inside are doing everything they can with 11 to go to get that 6 into victory lane tonight.
You don't exactly see Anthony driving as hard as he can to push McConey to the front here. You kind of just see him, well, as I say that, he's going to get right to the rear bumper of him, but you don't really see him working too hard to get McConey to the lead here.
And that's part of it. Is there goes the outside. Aaron Tribble pokes his nose to the outside. Now Tribble again was the lucky dog under that caution, so the 22 has been able to work himself back up to the front and work himself back into a position to where he can win this race. But going back to your point about Anthony and McConey, that's why you need teammates. That's why teammates are so important. Your teammate is not going to push a rival championship driver past you for a win in the playoffs.
And you got to think here, too, these guys at the back, like Tribble, McFadden, Ludwig, they want to be the spoilers to this front establishment as Borman to the top, making it 3 wide with Tribble here as...
Borman in the wall, Anthony around as well. There they go again. Caution does not come out as Anthony, or pardon me, that's Bowerman stopped on the back straightaway. Ernie Ludwig down there as well in the 16 coming across the screen. Anthony around and out of it as well. And that has certainly helped Craig McConey out because now he doesn't have to worry about one of those guys behind him.
I was extremely interesting how the yellow did not fly for that.
Yeah.
But that's very
Second
beneficial
time.
to the other. Well, you can make the case that it's beneficial to Tribble, McConey, and Lombard, but they still have one guy they got to get around, and that's Adams.
With the 8 and the 9 just getting really close to each other there. And come to blows coming out of turn 2. Aaron Tribble getting collected. Deshaun Dura and Ernie Ludwig took a big hit on the inside as well. We'll go back up to the front of the field now. As you're talking about McConey, this field just got leveled out a little bit for him. Instead of battling 3 balls out drivers, he now only has to battle 2. And one of them is having pretty severe connection issues at the moment in the 31.
You got to think at this point, when do you want to help Trafari out if you're McConey? Because at the moment, you're not going to win this race unless if you have a massive help from John behind you here. And we really haven't seen John push a whole lot of people tonight. So if you're Greg, you got to think, what's going to help me the best compared to this points battle with Chris and Connor. And honestly, if I'm Greg here, I'm thinking about just helping Connor trying to take points away from Chris.
There's only 6 drivers in this front pack. The only one that is not running for the playoffs right now is the driver running in second. That is Marcus Adams. Everybody else has something to play for and has a ticket they can punch going into the next 2 races, into the next championship round. So there is everything to play for here for all of these guys except for the 31 in this pack. Aaron Tribble has also caught a draft. He has caught one from Ryan Decker in the 28. However, those guys are still losing ground at a rather alarming rate. So Tribble needs a caution to get back into this as John Lombard starts looking racy on that outside.
You got to think Adams is going to make this car super wide as now Trafari goes to the top side, but he's got no help. He needs McConey to be on his rear end there, or else that's just not going to work.
Might be McConey saying a little too early yet. Let's wait a second here and see what comes of this. Try to give them as little time as possible to come back and put up a counterattack. As the 31 now kind of sliding up the racetrack with the 48, and now Trafari has the help he needs. All of the drivers, all of those drivers in that group getting around the 31 and the 6. They know that those two are locked together, and they're going to try to get around him, but Worrell might just dump it himself.
And there's a lot of traffic coming up there with Pap and Brazyton, so they got to make this work here, preferably pretty quickly.
Jump on board now with Connor Trafari to see, and there's the traffic. 3 cars in front of these guys, and Trafari still has not yet cleared Chris Worrell. There he is poking the nose out in front on the inside of your screen in that number 6, and now is where it becomes difficult because here comes the traffic.
Traffic is working very well with these guys. They understand that this is a race for the lead, and that sucks for some of those guys like Pap that just got lapped because you feel like that's where you should be at. You feel like you belong there, but you just can't. You're just not.
Just can't quite make the run work. Is that outside line? All of these guys really getting all out of sorts as Trafari now does work to the inside in front of the 6 of Chris Worrell. Worrell, I'm sure, is not going to want to sit there for too long as they get past Deshaun Dura on the inside line. But right now, McConey just laying right on that right side door of Worrell.
And McConey cannot let Adams get clear here, because then that's just a free invitation for them to leave Trafari in the dust, as that top lane is still working quite well, and McFadden pushing McConey here.
3 laps to go when they hit the line here, and any one of these guys can take this victory. It's Fords on the outside, a Toyota, 2 Toyotas, and a Chevrolet on the inside. And right now, that inside line has the advantage, as McFadden just cannot seem to get the push on the 12 of McConey the way he needs to.
You can't fault McFadden for trying, but he is all over. And now that opened the door for Worrell to go to the top side here.
Yeah, Worrell is going to try now to get around the 48 of Trafari, try to take that run from McConey. Trafari's trying to block and keep Marcus Adams behind him. Top 5 are all playoff contending drivers, and McConey gets to the inside before Worrell does, and that's going to move Worrell down into the second position on the inside line. McConey to the lead, and now Trafari getting into the back of Worrell, but Worrell just able to hold on. McConey now needing to block off McFadden on the outside.
Fantastic driving by Worrell there. Now he's going to have an excellent run there in McFadden, but he gets trapped up. But important for Worrell, he's now back together with Adams, so those two can work together. But look at this, 2x2 for the lead.
Yep, we're back in the days of tandem drafting at this point, as McConey has McFadden pushing him. Trafari pushing John LeBombard to the race lead here with 2 to go. Look at the 95 take the race lead.
Hey, what did I say? Where did he come from?
Exactly,
we haven't talked about
right.
him leading all night until the very end.
Exactly right. Adams and Worrell laying back to try to get the run on this last lap. McFadden to the inside. Look at McConey going up to block Trafari and then to block Worrell. Worrell is in the wall, coming to the white flag. McConey goes back to the middle to take over the race lead.
And Trafari's got a massive push here, so Trafari needs to clear John by the exit of 2. It looks like he's got the run at the moment. Trafari trying to get back with Adams, trying to hook up again.
It did not appear to be. The second I saw McConey go up to the outside, I knew he wasn't going to block Trafari. He knew that the 6 and 31 were coming. Now they go to the outside. McConey goes up to block on the outside, leaving Trafari all alone in the middle. McConey sits in the middle of the racetrack now. McFadden trying to push John LeBombard to the race win. McConey in the middle, getting pushed by Worrell. Worrell swings to the outside, now swings back to the middle. McConey putting on a couple of great blocks, takes the win as Worrell goes around behind them. What a finish. McConey, Adams, LeBombard take it, I believe, take first, second, and third.
Oh, wow. That was incredible.
You want to talk about mirror driving. What a race, what a finish by Greg McConey. Wow.
They honestly should have wrecked about 5 times in the last 2 laps, and they somehow didn't do it until about 100 yards from the finish line.
One of the guys who was outnumbered 3-1, of which all of them were, comes out with the victory here on a stellar last lap. Unbelievable finish. McConey, Adams, LeBombard take the top 3, and we'll take a moment just to catch our breaths, number 1, and number 2, to get these guys in here. So just bear with us for one moment here. So we're getting these guys in here now, or at least trying to at the moment. As we'll take the winning interview first here. Oh, okay. Are we going to take the winning? Okay, so here we go. We'll take the winning interview now. Nate, you are with Greg.
Greg, Nate up here in the ESPN booth. You got a copy, good sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, that was an impeccable piece of driving there on the final lap of this race. Talk about mere driving at its finest, but talk us through that last run there. We had the three teammates of Adams, Worrell, and Anthony as well. They were all lined up together, working together, and you were the only one that was kind of around them, trying to work around it. Talk us through that sequence of laps before it kind of got broken up there, what you were trying to do to win the race.
So I was Connor and I were talking. We knew that if we had any shot on that last restart, we had to split up those three as best we could. So Connor and I were talking that whole time. He did a great job. Once we kind of knew what they were doing, him and I were calling it out back and forth with all of that. And we just kind of knew we were trying to stay one step ahead of them. If Chris got ahead of me, I was telling Connor to, watch the jump high, or I'm trying to get that run just to get back to his left rear or his right rear. And then I knew once we kind of split them up, we got help from McFadden and LeBombard, and those guys. I mean, they were a huge help. So we were, I saw them go three wide behind me with Michael Anthony, and Zach was up there, and it just we knew once that third guy dropped out, it got back to us 5 or 6, whatever it was. We knew that we had the numbers over those two, and from then on, it was just mirror driving the whole way. Like you said, I don't even remember looking ahead of me for those last 2 laps or so. That was all driving.
I mean, it seemed like Worrell probably was trying to knock that rear bumper off. I'm sure he probably has an aggression against it now with how often he was hitting it. But, I mean, you somehow kept it straight in those last laps. But I was amazed by the fact, the skill by you, all you 6 of you there in that front pack to keep it together. I mean, talk us through what was going through your mind with, the runs, Adams and Worrell were getting. They were quite incredible trying to time that block. Talk us through that.
I had Mark McFadden behind me, and I was just keeping an eye on him. I knew Connor and John were on the bottom, so I knew I didn't have much competition there. I was just watching for those two coming through the back because, God, they were just on rails all night. And that's the effectiveness of 3 teammates working together. I mean, you see it with us dude guys all the time. We run well, but those balls guys, when they get going, oh, my God, they're as competitive as anybody on the field. So I knew they were going to try and mount that run at some point, and I just knew that either I'm taking home the checkered flag, or I'm taking this thing home with the wheel in hand and the car's on the wrecker.
I mean, that's got to give you a confidence boost. Next week, you're locked in. You have no worries. You're for sure going on in the playoffs. The first check mark is done. What have you learned from tonight that you can use to maybe check off some other boxes as we get closer to the end of the season?
Yeah, certainly this helps. It pushes me to round 2 at least, but I knew coming in with a 60-point lead over, I think the anybody but the top 6. I knew I was in a good spot, so I was kind of able to go out there, and that's why I was fine, really kind of slinging the car out like I was in those last laps because, no matter what, I've got I've got enough points that I can lean on and do, to go farther back. Not running these trucks again in the playoffs. I don't think we do, at least. It's tough to kind of carry anything over, really, because the Xfinity cars are so with so much low downforce. You can't throw those kind of blocks like we were doing, like I was doing tonight. That was all thanks to the high downforce package on these trucks. But, hey, I'm happy. It lets me kind of go out, maybe make a little more aggressive moves than I typically would. But yeah, it's fun. I love doing that. That was fantastic racing. I hope Chris doesn't hold too many hard feelings. That's just hard racing, and there isn't anybody else I'd rather be, slinging it around than that isn't a teammate than Chris and those guys.
Well, absolutely. Well, congratulations on your win. Any shout outs or congratulations that you want to hand out tonight, Greg?
I gotta commend those balls out, guys. That was fantastic. Connor and John and Mark McFadden, those guys, that I couldn't have gotten here without their help. The other dudes racing guys, I couldn't have gotten, or been in the race like I was without their help. Got to go and thank the sponsors, Circle B Diecast, Rowdy Energy, iRacing, iFlags, Butt Kicker, Midwest Motor Customs, which I had on the car tonight. The wife, family, anybody that's tuning in. I got to thank you guys. You guys put on a heck of a show, and I love having you and Frank in the booth because it always seems to bring me a little bit of luck. So I'll never turn that down whenever that happens.
Well, then hopefully you probably want us to call the season finale for you guys. That would be great. Well, great. Congratulations on the win tonight, punching your ticket to the second round. We'll see you next week.
Nate, thanks, Frank. We'll see you guys next week.
Absolutely. So there was your race winner, Greg McConey, and he said it about as perfectly as you could have there, that those balls out drivers, and we saw it all race long, and for me, I saw it all last season as well. Those guys are just so doggone good once they get hooked up together, and tonight was a prime example of that. Unfortunately, Marcus Adams having issues with his Discord, so unfortunately we're not going to be getting an interview with the second place finisher, but we will bring in our third place finisher right now. That would be John LeBombard. And, coming from the back and going up to the front, that seems to be your forte in these races. Pulled out an incredible third place finish, had the lead there for a minute on the last lap. Do we have you, John? This is why I always check first, and the one time I don't check first. You there, John?
Yeah, I'm here. You got me?
There we go. We got some life now. An incredible run for you tonight, coming from the back, going up to the front, leading on the last lap. That was an incredible drive from you.
Thanks. Yeah. Boy, that was a lot of fun. Somebody hit me, it looked like, in the rear there, slowed me down a little bit coming out of turn 4. But, boy, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it certainly was. Tell us a little bit about your race, because you were one of the drivers that elected not to qualify, put down in last place to start this thing, and you're working your way through the field the entire race. What were these trucks like to drive in traffic tonight?
They were a little hairy in traffic. I normally start at the back. I know there's going to be some wrecks up front usually, so I try to avoid those. That's my mindset with that.
Going into the next race, I believe it's Talladega in the Xfinity cars, if I remember correctly. You have a great position now, finishing third place with a lot of chase drivers being knocked out or having some trouble here in tonight's race. What is your focus going to be going into next week's race?
Well, I'm going to go in the same way as I did tonight. Probably not going to qualify, and just work my way up front. Hope to be there at the end.
You certainly did a fantastic job of that tonight. Anybody you want to thank before we let you go and celebrate?
Absolutely. I'd like to thank Circle B Diecast, Rowdy Energy, Butt Kicker, Midwest Motor Customs, and iRacing iFlag. They'll put on a great show here.
Yep, they certainly do. So congratulations to the third place finisher and the second highest finishing chaser tonight, John LeBombard. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So that right there will wrap up a very, very fun night here at Daytona. An incredible, incredible night with a lot of great racing. And that was one of the more entertaining finishes and one of the more aggressive finishes from a blocking standpoint that we've seen all season now, with you and me doing the first half. Sam and Byron have been doing the races more recently. These guys put on an incredible show, probably one of the better shows of the season.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably one of the stronger final laps that we've seen out of these guys. And part of that was due to that aggression level that you mentioned. Like I heard in that interview, Greg was not afraid to throw it around. I'm sure if we got the opportunity to interview Chris, he just said the exact same thing. So the playoffs seem to be bringing out the aggression of some of these guys that are way more comfortable compared to the guys that are further back, like John LeBombard and Mark McFadden, who are in that pack. We didn't really see them make a whole lot of aggressive moves there compared to those two. So yeah, an incredible showing here at the end of the race tonight, and partly just due to the fact that the aggression level was at an entirely different level there.
It absolutely was. And with that, we will now go to the final results here for tonight's race. Greg McConey putting it on the top step of the podium and locking himself into the next round of the playoffs. Marcus Adams, who we unfortunately didn't get to hear from, and John LeBombard rounding out the top three. And again, LeBombard, the second highest finishing playoff driver. A big, big points night for him as one of the drivers coming into tonight that did not have a race win. Connor Trafari and Chris Worrell still having very good nights between the two of them, finishing fourth and fifth. Mark McFadden with a very solid performance as well, coming home in sixth. Aaron Tribble getting knocked out of the front pack after that incident that happened with who was it? With Michael Anthony. Anthony, he will fall back 31 seconds behind in the seventh position. Ryan Worley, Zach Bowerman, and Ryan Decker finish out the top 10. Brandon Wilson and Zashawn Dura will complete the top 12.
Jason Papp, he came home in the 13th position tonight after his incident there on the backstretch with Joe Gautier just doing laps. He came home in the 14th place from that. Ernie Ludwig, he came home in the 15th position with Anthony, like we discussed there, having that incident on the backstretch. He came home in the 16th position. Duxton Loxton, he was involved in that first incident. He came home in the 17th position alongside GT Park, who had that pit road mishap there. He fell back to 18th position. Dan Brazenton managed to do laps there at the end in order to help his run. He came home in 19th after that. Elijah Ennis, we saw him have that incident there out of the tribal. He came home in the 20th position. Nick Kessler, Shane Newens, and Shane Posey were all involved in that turn one incident. They came home in the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd places, respectively.
So that will do it for us here tonight on ESPN. Coming up tomorrow afternoon will be round number 4 of the eFormula 3.5 series. Myself and Jake Sperry will be in the booth for that race. It'll be round number 4 from Interlagos, the Brazilian Grand Prix, and that race will start at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The Medieval Racing League at Bristol for round number 4. That will be this Sunday at 8:10 p.m. Eastern Time. At 8:20 on May 10th, Monday, May 10th, will be the Rowdy Energy Cup Series season. They will be at Darlington, and there are going to be a lot of new things. They're going to be running the next-gen car. The Darlington was resurfaced, reconfigured by iRacing just this last week. So a lot of new. If there is one race for the Rowdy Energy Cup Series season to watch this year, this one is going to be it. There's a lot of new going on Monday night. Coming up on Tuesday will be a doubleheader. The MX5 Pro Series for the UK Sim Racing will be at lovely Barcelona with a 2:50 p.m. Eastern Time start. And then coming up on Tuesday night will be round number 16 for the Western States Racing, 17 for the Western States Racing League. They will be at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park up in Canada, the nightcap for Tuesday night. So for my broadcast partner tonight, Nate Siefker, I am Frank Marchese. Thank you very much for making us a part of your evening. We will see you here for playoff round number 2 from Talladega next week, and we will also see you tomorrow afternoon for the eFormula 3.5 series from Interlagos. Have a fantastic evening, everybody.